Thank you. I love that song. It's by Stevie Nicks and Fleetwood Mac. One of my favorites. Well, good morning. So yeah, it's Earth Day, and Earth Day is about celebrating the creation of Mother Nature and our balance of Mother Nature and how we interact with Mother Nature. So what a perfect lesson. I too didn't know this was going to be Earth Day when we selected the lesson. So the lesson is about new beginnings. Let's go ahead and put my first slide up. And so let's say this together. With God's guidance, I create exciting new beginnings. And so we are indeed expressions of God. And life is meant to be joyful. And in being joyful, it also involves us being creators, not reactors to what's happening in the world. You know, they have the same letters in it, being a creator and a reactor. We are divine creators. We were created in the image and likeness of God. And for us to use our faculties, to use our senses, to create whatever it is that we choose to in the world. And so this lesson is all about creation, the new beginning. And I'm going to start with a story that I actually had a little bit towards the end because I think it's important. Sometimes we forget that we can have an idea and then create it to fruition just like that. And so I actually had an email that someone that attended here, he attended as a winter visitor for the first time this year. And he got to really enjoy this Unity Church. And so we've been emailing back and forth. His name is Roland Wolf. And when he headed out, he let me know that he was heading out and he was going to Yuma. And he sent me this email last night about something he did a couple weeks ago. He and his wife decided that they're going to go for a balloon ride. And so they showed up, and then there were also 4 other people that showed up. There was a grandmother and her grandchild that had showed up. And then there was another woman who was celebrating her 91st birthday, and she showed up with her son. And so I got this email from Roland. So first of all, Roland was a little concerned because the week before they did this, you remember there was a balloon crash in Arizona? And so that was on his mind. You know, could this be possible? And so he decided to go anyway for whatever reason. And then he sent me an article, a link to an article that was actually written about this 91-year-old woman that decided to go on this balloon ride. And so I want to share a little bit. Her name is Marion. And so Marion had this idea. It all just started with an idea. She likes to do something remarkable for her birthdays, and so this idea came. And then here's what the article had to say. For her 91st birthday, her wish was to ride on a hot air balloon. So when I told my son, her son's name is Dennis, I wanted to do it for my birthday, his eyebrows went up. So Marion said, laughing heartily, I told Dennis when his dad and I got married, we rode a mule down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. This time I want to go up. It went on to say this. It was just wonderful, she said. It was absolutely beyond everything you can imagine. I loved every minute of it. There was nothing scary about it. It was very smooth, and I want to do it again. I'm going to leave the article a little bit because I shared with you there was another grandmother and her granddaughter that also went on the balloon ride. And what he said is they never looked over the edge of the balloon for the hour and a half that they were in the air. Difference in perspective. The article then goes on to say that Dennis said his mom looked like a little puppy in the basket, standing up against the side with her little paws, just shaking with excitement as if saying, pick me, pick me. And so Marion said she likes to live life, to take life by the bullhorns, determined to enjoy life fully. As I have gotten older, she said, I've been living kind of a second childhood. And then they asked her, so what are you going to do next year for your birthday? And so here's what she had to say. Well, if I'm still here, I want to be strapped to a big burly man and jump out of a plane. I thought, how perfect is that? Where have we let the excitement go? Do you remember the excitement of a child? And you heard what Marion said. She's living a second childhood. And then I remember what Judy said last week, that, you know, Jesus told us that in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, that we need to be as a little child. So what does that mean? What does that mean? So that purity, that trusting. I believe it also has to do with realizing that we are creators of our life. We get to choose every moment on what our attitude is going to be, and it's our attitude that determines our altitude. And so today, I want to explore this whole notion of the creators we are, and how do we create, how do we birth anything into the world? And what came to mind was my son Joe. And so my son Joe is, ever since a little child, he loved to play with puzzles, he loved to draw, he would wear different colored socks, he would want his hair dyed. I mean, he always had that, he wanted to be unique, he wanted to be his own self, and we allowed him to express himself. However, it was emerging for him. I'm not sure I liked his hair colors from time to time, or his choice of sock colors, but you know, there was something in him that I could see that was this creator that was just looking to emerge so fully. And he used to love to play with Legos. And how many of you played with Legos when you were a kid? Legos. Good. And so Legos. So, you know, I would buy him a box of Legos. And when I was a kid, we didn't have any of the fancy Legos, you know, where you can build the Battlestar Galactica and, you know, some castle with drawbridges and pirates and all that. But that's, when he was growing up, what we had is Legos. And so every birthday and Christmas, I would get him something in Legos. And they even had a beautiful instruction booklet, all in 4 colors, and, you know, step by step, page by page, you go through and you build your Battlestar Galactica. And so we'd get it, and I would get down on the floor with him, and we'd just dump out all the Legos on the floor. And we'd just get on all fours, and we'd just start putting the Legos together, you know, and, you know, I'd help him a little bit in the beginning, but then after a while, he just wanted Dad out of the way, and he would just go about putting his Legos together. And it was interesting, because he would never build that particular thing again. Once he built it once, there was no need for that instruction booklet, there was no need for the box. All the Legos would go into the big box where all the other Lego kits have gone. And then he would just take that box out from time to time, dump all the Legos out, and just create something out of his own mind. He knew how to create. And so I want to share with you some steps of the creation process for any of us to create anything that we want to birth into the world. Go ahead and show my next slide. And so I'm going to take you up the mountain on one side. And so the first place that Joe begins with his Legos is imagination. And so to just kind of say, okay, they're all on the floor. What do I want to build today? What do I want to build? Well, let's build a castle. Okay, we're going to build a castle. And then it's looking at all those pieces that are on the floor. You might even say, Dad, you want to build a castle with me? Sure. I get on all fours, but he's in charge. And together we start, you know, pulling different Lego pieces. And, oh, give me another red one. You know, give me one of those big red ones over there. Okay, I got it, Joe. Here you go. And he just starts building. And the pieces just start to be forming. And he's got an idea in his mind what it's going to look like. But it's still evolving as he's going. The whole picture maybe isn't clear. But then it starts to get clearer and clearer. So I call this, it's the visualization. Not just visualizing in our mind, but kind of looking at what are the puzzle pieces that we have available to us that we can use to build this castle. Let me get an idea by seeing how many, just how big it could be. And then you get to a point in the creation process where, in essence, you expect that it's going to come all together. So I've got it in my mind, I got an idea of what I got here as pieces, and, you know, I'm going to build this castle. We're just going to do it until we're done. He would be there for hours, not saying a word, building this castle. And you see, a lot of times we let fear stop us. So I don't know how long Marion had the idea to go ballooning, but she could have let fear stop her. This morning it was great to be here to have, because I knew this was going to be Sunny's first time being a solo performer. She sung in choirs and that, but this was different. And it was wonderful to watch Sunny and Jimmy work. So Jimmy mentoring her, and she figuring out the rhythm with Jimmy of what they were going to do. So looking at the puzzle pieces, what they had to work with, and how to bring it all together. And then there was a point in the practice, they had practiced 2 songs, but Sunny had 3 songs she wanted to do. And she said, why don't we just forget about the 3rd song, and Jimmy, why don't you just figure out something for that period of time? And Jimmy said, no, we'll do the 3rd song. And they practiced the 3rd song. So you're going to hear a 3rd song today. And so Dennis, Marion's son, could have said, Marion, no, you don't want to go up on a balloon. Didn't you hear about the balloon that crashed a week ago? Why don't we just change that? I could have, said, Joe, no, that's not the way to build it. Let's get the instruction book out again. Let's build the castle the way you're supposed to build the castle. But I didn't. You know what Joe's doing now? So he is in his first year of architectural school at the University of Arizona. And it was interesting because it wasn't an easy process to get even into the College of Architecture. So after the first year, you get a chance to test in. Well, he tested in, and he didn't make it the first year. And so, we sat down and said, you still want to be an architect, right? I said, yeah. Well, hang on to that dream. You'll get it. Don't worry about how long it takes. Just do what you need to. And he did. So, this thing called creation, we can sometimes get stopped by the fear that wells up, the self-doubt, what others may say to us, that just kind of has that well up in us. And people don't even have to say a word sometimes, and it just naturally wells up in us. So why don't you put the next slide on? How many of you have been to Disneyland? Okay. So how many of you love to ride roller coasters? Raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down. How many of you hate to ride roller coasters, only go when, someone drags you kicking and screaming? Okay. So roller coasters. So let's imagine that this right here, this is the Splash Mountain at Disneyland. So it's a roller coaster, a little different than some, but it begins the same way. There's an ascent that goes up. So how many of you hate to ride roller coasters are feeling the pain already, right? Yeah. And then it gets up, and instead of just going down quickly, it you have a breather. And so you enter this tunnel at the top, and there are all these little cartoon characters singing happy songs, and you're meandering through the bayou in this dark cave. And then you kind of meander through, and you start seeing a light, which is a tunnel that you're approaching. And then you start hearing the rushing water as you're approaching. And as you get closer, no longer can you hear the singing sweet little animals in the background, just the rush of the water. And then you jut out of this exit of the tunnel, and you can see all of Disneyland. And then this log drops down 5 stories to this pool down below, and we decided we're going to go on that little ride. And so this is Joe, my architect. This is Lynn. Nice hair day, Lynn. This is Dominic. And this is me, and then there's some other crazies up here. So here's the way it worked. We got in line, and I love the lines in Disneyland. They kind of meander, so you will stay in the line and not see how long it is. And as it's meandering, and there's nice little interesting things to see, cartoon characters that come up to you and talk to you. And, you know, we're kind of chatting with them and chatting amongst ourselves. Then all of a sudden, Dominic starts to get quiet. He's no longer saying anything. And we're getting closer and closer to getting onto this log. And we're within a couple people of getting on the log. The next one, we're going to get in. And then Dominic says, I got to go to the restroom! And he runs, and he's gone. And there we are in the line. And we decided to do it without him the first time. So we did. And we went, da-da-da-da-da, happy, 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 happy. Ah! You think that's funny, don't you? We have two little ones up here. And so Dominic returned, and we shared about it. And we shared what happened and how much fun it was, and we survived. He saw we were still alive. And so he decided he was going to go on. And so we all get in the second time, and again, he's kind of holding on with white knuckles. And we get in a little happy place, and enjoying it, and then he sees the same light at the end of the tunnel and the rush of water, and then we go down and it's woohoo! Ah! And then we hit the water down and whoosh! And everyone's laughing, and what do you think the first words out of Dominic's mouth were?
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again! Let's do it again! What if? What if? It's all a matter of perspective. So those of you that love to ride roller coasters, you see it as what? Exciting, right? Those of you that hate to ride roller coasters, it's more like panic, right? Same roller coaster, different people, different perspectives. What if? It's just like flipping a switch. So you feel the nervousness, you feel the anxiety. What if that's all a natural part of it? What if I always feel that before I get up to speak? That's not even a what if. It's a matter of channeling the energy into something creative. That's all it is. And so we're in an exciting period of time in here too. And so it's a new creation. So we're creating in here a new ministry. And so let me share a little bit more about the creation process. So flip to the next slide. And so once you get through this and get an idea of what it looks like, the picture of it, and I'll share in a little bit, just a result of last Sunday, we had our first of many, what we're calling fellowship sessions, just to have people share their ideas, their own picture of what they're seeing, their own questions that they might have, that we'll see the best we can answer. And so that's what this process is. It builds what I call potential energy. It's almost like an energy ball that forms. The more you get to see what the pieces of the puzzle, the pieces of the Legos look like, the greater excitement starts to build. And then you reach a point where you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. And so you say yes or no. And that's why I like the mountain. It's that roller coaster going down the other side. But it's where the excitement is. And it's where, if you allow it, things will happen. And so this process on the other side, it's kinetic energy. You get to see more coming together. It's being built. In the case of the buildings that Joe's going to design, it's getting together, having an idea. A client says, I want to build something. I want to build a house. And Joe's asking some questions. And, hey, my finger, it went through my finger, and then, never mind. asking the questions and getting a sense of what the pieces of the puzzle look like, and getting it in conceptual form to say, okay, is this it? And then it's that excitement of, yeah, that's it, wow. And then saying, okay, that's going to cost some money. Okay, that's going to cost some time. You know, we have to put teams together and all of that. Are we ready to do it? And the decision is yes. And then that just all flows out of it. So you design it. You put it on paper. You put all the specifications to it. So in the case of a building, it's, you know, what is the shape of the building? What's the roof going to look like? You know, what inside are you going to have on the wall? Where do you need your lights? Where do you need your air conditioners? It's all those little pieces. It's not worrying about it here. Here it's just kind of defining what it's going to look like when it's done. Over here, it's how do you get it to work? How do we now take that and put it into play? How do we actually have it be a reality? And I inserted our little RV here because we have to do the same thing with our RV. It was like building a house. We had the idea of kind of what we wanted. We researched it with some friends of ours and went in different RVs and decided what it was going to look like. And then we had to make a decision, are we going to do it or not do it? We decided to do it. And then we designed it. We got the specifications for it. We picked out all the little flooring and the counters and the cabinets and all of that and had it designed so that we could drive it away and enjoy it. And so, next slide. This was the result of our first mission last week. Yeah, applause. So there were 68 people that showed up for our first mission. How many of you showed up? Raise your hand if you showed up. Look at this. And so all we did in this first one was say, you know, what questions do you have in your mind? You know, what is it that you just have in your heart that you want to say? And so people shared their ideas, shared their questions, and we did it in an exciting way. Pulled out as many ideas as we could in a short period of time. And then what I've done is I've gone through and I've kind of looked at all the pieces of the Legos and said, okay, well, it looks like there's some categories over here that look like facilities, and this looks like ideas for the Sunday service to make it more exciting. This looks like, you know, what is the process for selecting the interim minister and that type of thing. And so kind of put it into categories. And now, this week, the board and staff will look at it and say, you know, are these kind of looking like what the categories are, what people are saying? And then from there, it's putting some structure to the next session. It's communicating what are the ideas that have already come out to get more ideas. And just kind of have it keep building. That's the process. And so we're in the potential energy side of the process. But it's exciting when you can kind of see the pieces of the puzzle falling together and seeing where some agreements are, maybe some where disagreements are, and then seeing, you know, how do we get something that works for as much as we can, everyone. And so whatever it is that you have in your own life that you can contribute to the process, think about that. As you see things evolving, like ways to volunteer, or, you know, ideas, we're going to build the garden and the gazebo out there. If you have some ideas about that, you might be able to contribute it. You might be able to get involved in some way. It's a perfect time to be able to express it. And so for this week, to kind of strengthen our muscle, because, you know, change is sometimes scary. Going in a balloon, a hot air balloon, and you've never done that, could be scary. And so I'm going to encourage you this week, think about what is something that you could take one step into that would be a new beginning. And so maybe it's at work. It could be something as simple as driving a different route to work on a particular day. It could be learning a new skill. At home, it could be planting a garden. It could be painting one of your rooms an outrageous color. What could it be for you that you could step into a new beginning this week? And so that's your homework. And so with that, remember that we each are creation beings. We each can create the world it is that we are looking for. And so it's just for us to decide what it is, to use our imagination, to visualize it, to expect that it will happen, and to allow it to happen. And so that's where joy comes from. So let's put our last slide, the affirmation, and let's say this together. With God's guidance, I create